Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
It's been a heck of a week. It's been over 100 degrees for the past 5 or 6 days. It's 106 today. And the question is, how do we survive in high temperatures with no air conditioning? And I'll give you one big clue. We do have a mini split air conditioner, but we only run it on a generator, which means we don't want to run it very often. It works great, but we really don't need to use it most of the time.
Well, if I could wave a magic wand, I would use it a lot more. But the fact is, it's just not practical. And it was the best thing we could get at the time.
Yeah, we bought it 7 or 8 years ago and installed it 7 years ago. It's really been a godsend for us many times.
Well, when you get up around 110 and it's really not cooling off at night, you have two choices. You can either not sleep or you can go for a ride in the car. Or you can turn on the generator. And what we normally will do is we'll turn it on late during the day, say 5 or 6 at the earliest, and then just run it long enough to cool the bedroom down, and we literally close the door and cool the bedroom down, and then that's it. At bedtime it gets turned off, but the bedroom is now cooler, so you can survive.
Now I should say that when we designed this house, we designed it specifically to be a passive solar house, and it's worked very, very well in that regard. We have the right size overhang. We have, you can't see them, but we have transom windows up the top of pretty much every room in this house.
Right.
So that we can get a cross breeze no matter which way the wind's blowing.
Right.
We open up the transom window on one side and the windows that are down lower on the other side.
Yeah, and some rooms have transoms on both sides, or at least close enough in terms of the height and everything. Works really well. The walls are super insulated. The ceiling is super insulated. It's just that when you get consecutive days of 105 or something like that for a week or two, there's too much heat buildup in the building itself.
And that's really the big thing, is we work really hard. In fact, when we were building this place, and we've told people who are building out here in Arizona by themselves, we tell everybody the same thing. Get up early in the morning. I'm talking 4:30,
yeah.
and be outside working because the temperature's down.
Right.
Even if it's 106 or 110 here, which is not terribly unusual now, unfortunately. When we first built our place, we'd have 2 or 3 days like that.
Right.
But now we get weeks on end. But if it's that hot in the morning, it'll be in the 60s most days. So you can go out and you can do heavy work.
And even if it's in the 70s or 80s, that's still a doable temperature. And it was hysterical because there's 2 groups in particular who live down south farther, and we told them this. And one guy goes like, "Whoa, you guys are really hardcore." And the other guy was pretty much had the same attitude. Well, now we see him out at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Early in the morning to
doing the heavy labor.
Yeah, so if you're going to dig a trench,
yeah,
you want to do that early in the day.
Yeah, you got to move cement blocks. Do it early in the day. Don't do that at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We used to get up at 4:30 in the morning. We'd work until about 7. Take a break for, why is my phone jingling? Oh, I'm getting fire alerts.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fires here in northern Arizona right now.
All of Arizona.
Yesterday, the main highway to Phoenix, where I have to go to Phoenix tomorrow. Actually, I go down tonight and stay in the airport because there's really no hotels that give you a shuttle to the airport early in the morning.
Yeah, they won't guarantee anything at 5 o'clock in the morning or earlier, which is what he would need.
So, but anyways, you start early in the day.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid.
Yeah.
All you have to do is look at the weather forecast. It's not always right, but usually within a 24-hour period, it'll get you close.
It'll get you within 5 to 10 degrees.
So every morning, Irene, who is the taller of us, goes around the house, and as soon as the temperature inside and outside reaches about the same point, she shuts it down. We have insulating drapes. Now, we didn't used to have insulating drapes. We didn't need them.
No, we really didn't when we built the house, and because we don't have any neighbors within viewing distance.
Yeah, they're 3/4 of a mile away.
Right, with trees and stuff in between. I mean, yeah, if you got up on their second story with a pair of binoculars, but I mean, I really.
then they deserve what they see.
Exactly. But we never had drapes or anything here because we didn't need it between the overhang and the insulation and everything else, and it's all double glazed windows and stuff like that. But we decided that both winter and summer it made a huge difference, so we now have insulated drapes completely in the bedroom and in the living room. I've actually been considering, I've got also in the pantry, also been considering putting some other ones up. It's just a matter of choosing something that's not too horrible looking and that's practical for the location. I had actually hoped this summer to be able to put some up in the kitchen, just on the windows that catch the south side, and probably not even on the center window, just on the two side windows, and only when the windows are not open. But it would also make a big difference because in the wintertime, if we're very cold, especially if we have wind, it really sucks the heat out of the house. It would make a difference there too. So, but it didn't happen this year. We had too many other things break, but maybe next year.
How do we keep it cool when we're going to freeze dry? That's a heck of a question.
Keep the window open and run the fan.
The problem with freeze drying is that it requires a reasonably large difference between the outside air going through the unit to cool it off and the heat that's in the condenser. That condenser is busy trying to liquefy the refrigerant in that cooler so that it can actually cool the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
I don't run the freeze dryer when it's going to be 100 degrees outside.
No, we time our freeze drying sessions because we don't have AC and stuff like that here. We time the freeze drying sessions. And we were just talking about this the other day. I said, this is going to be great this winter because we can actually plan on it to help heat the house. Because we will, the heat will be in the pantry, but we can easily run a fan to take it out. Or blow it outside if we don't want it in the house. There's large portions of the winter here that we don't need extra heat. So we can do it either way. But timing your freeze drying, there was a lady I was watching the other day, she said she could not, she had to rearrange her house basically because, as she said, a lot of people will put their freeze dryers in their garage. Well, where she lives in Florida, 7 months out of the year, her garage is over 90 degrees. So that's not going to work. It has to be in a more climate-controlled environment. And you can run it a little hot, but you don't want to run it too hot. It makes a longer cycle. You're putting more stress on the machine. And it makes a longer cycle. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is that it just takes a lot more time.
Now, we can run our freeze dryer from early in the morning, when it's cool out, all day long. And generally speaking, we need to run at least 20 hours in order to freeze dry the contents of one chamber.
Right.
And the problem with that is by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, if it's going to be hot, it's going to be hot here.
Hot, yeah.
And when I say hot, if we're looking at something that's going to be over 90 degrees, the freeze dryer is going to be laboring a bit to try to cool things off.
So we try to make sure it's going to be, if we can do it, we like it to be below 85. Sometimes you can't if you're really trying to push something. We were chatting with some friends the other day, and they had some questions about freeze drying and what were the advantages. Your mom had some questions about it too. What were the advantages and disadvantages and stuff. And actually, we want to do a show on that at some point because we're still canning.
Well, we do every kind of preserving that you can think of. The only thing we don't regularly do is we no longer dehydrate.
Right.
We spend as much power in dehydrating, actually more, than what we do in freeze drying.
Right.
So if I'm going to dehydrate, I might as well go ahead and freeze dry it because I get a better product.
Right, because like with herbs and stuff, a lot of times in the process of dehydrating, unless you're doing it naturally, like I used to when we lived in California. We had a back patio that was screened in, and I could put things out there, and there was a natural breeze that went through. We were bone dry in that area most of the year, and that natural warm breeze every day, and just a day or two, and everything would be perfectly dehydrated. I could make fruit leather, I could do everything back there without any use of electricity. So unless you're lucky enough to live someplace like that, where you don't have to add in extra electricity, it doesn't make any sense for us, because I have dried some of our herbs from the yard and stuff before. And the other day I was looking, because I'm almost out of oregano, and I've actually been using fresh oregano from the garden because the dried stuff we're out of it. And I was like, well, I could, you have to look at where you put your efforts. Like, I can go to Sam's Club, and for $7 I can buy a gigantic container of oregano, or I can just dry my own, or use our own fresh. So it's a kind of a balancing act, but we still do can, and we still do freeze.
In fact, in canning, we wanted to have some black beans, and I make our black beans, and we can them together. It goes a lot faster. So we canned, I think, 7 quarts and 17 pints of black beans.
Something like that, yeah.
And the reason why I canned in the quarts was because I didn't have any freeze dryer trays available to put black beans on. And even if I did, 7 quarts is about 20 pounds of black beans, and that's 50% more weight than I want to put in the freeze dryer.
Right.
So I had to be able to hold those black beans somehow. So the easy answer was can them.
Can them. And then when we decide we're going to freeze dry them, it's easy enough to just pour them out onto some trays, pre-freeze them. We pre-freeze everything 99.99% of the time. And you'll hear some people who don't. Some people who have really cheap electricity and really don't care how much they run their freeze dryer will just throw it in the freeze dryer in whatever condition it's in. There's some things that really just don't work well doing that.
I don't like liquids in the freeze dryer.
Right.
I prefer to have liquids completely frozen before they go in, because if you put a liquid in that's only partially frozen or not frozen at all, you run a very real risk of having the liquid
Expand.
boil off and
Make a
go
mess.
all over the place.
Yeah, we've seen some pictures and videos of things that people have done to their freeze dryers. They're not irreparable, but you're going to spend a lot of time scrubbing. And I never really enjoyed scrubbing my oven, so why would I enjoy scrubbing my freeze dryer? So to me, the effort that it takes, which is really pretty low effort, to freeze dry. I just watched somebody today who was doing some ice cream, and she had not pre-frozen the trays, and the ice cream was not frozen enough. So the stuff that she had that had been pre-frozen correctly worked beautifully. It just sat there. It looked like little scoops of ice cream, and it did beautifully. The stuff where she had plopped the stuff onto warm trays, you shouldn't do that, and then she put it in when the temperature was like 56.
Okay, so you warm tray, metal, which means conducts heat well,
Right.
into a warm environment, 57 degrees, you're going to have
Meltage.
puddles.
Yeah. Well, what she wound up with is on one of the trays in particular, it didn't make a big mess. She was lucky. But it made the little teeny ice cream scoops that she had splurge out into these blobs. And as she said, the flavor's fine. They're not pretty. It'll be fine. She said, we're not giving this stuff away or anything. It's just for family use. But the whole point is, if you're putting the effort in, there's just a few things you can do to make things nicer. And we've always felt that was worth it. Like some people would say, why do you waste so much time decorating your Thanksgiving pumpkin pies?
Well, if it's not good enough for me, who's it good enough for?
Yes. There used to be a wonderful comedian in the Boston area who talked about that. The families who, you don't use the good silver because that's only for when you have, guests, important guests. You don't use the good china because that's only for, I'm sorry, we don't have that many guests. Even when my kids were little, we would at least once a month sit down with the good china and the good silver and all that kind of stuff and do a sit-down dinner. And it was, if a kid had something cool happening, they were graduated from high school, they were just finishing a year in high school, they were finishing a year in elementary school, they had some recital they'd done or something that was cool, it was a birthday, it was a this, it was a that, that was enough of a reason to, or even just maybe, oh, shrimp are in season and we're having a big shrimp boil. That's enough of a reason to drag out the good stuff.
Yeah, we always use the good china. We always use the good glass. We had very, very little loss. You know, we taught both of our kids how to set the table formally.
Yes.
How to set the table informally.
Yeah.
What you needed to do, which knife and fork and spoon do you use for what course.
Well, you know, my thought was I have been out to dinner, business dinners, with some people who I thought to myself, oh dear, if I were in charge of helping them progress in their business, the first thing I would do is say, you got to learn some table manners. Yes, it's hoping I'll be colder. Sorry.
It's funny that we're talking about living without air conditioning in the high desert northern Arizona, and it's this hot today.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we rely on is the high daytime temperature with a low nighttime temperature. And we work really hard to exchange the air in the house during the nighttime so the house is cooler in the morning when we get up. Generally speaking, the house is under 80 degrees in the morning. In fact, most mornings is in the low 70s.
Right.
When it's really hot outside and the temperature just doesn't drop and
Right.
it stays up for a couple of days, it gets hot. And that's when we turn on the air conditioner.
Right, right.
And
if we wanted to, I mean, this area is dry enough that most of the time you could use a swamp cooler, which is just a type of evaporative cooler that's common in the desert Southwest.
except on those days when it's 100 degrees outside and the
it's muggy.
humidity is high,
Yeah.
then they don't work.
No,
so
they don't work at all.
that's why we have an air conditioner.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this little talk about how we survive in northern Arizona
And freeze dryers and all that stuff.
without having a lot of air conditioning
Yeah.
and not having to run a lot of air conditioning helps. The decisions we made 7 or 8 years ago are not the same decisions I would make today. If I were to put more mini splits in the house, I could go get a mini split that runs directly off solar panels, which means there's no need for batteries, no need for inverters, nothing
Right.
like that.
There's a lot of equipment that simply was not available 20 years ago when we built this place.
So there's a lot of things changing. So if you're thinking about living off grid, hardcore off grid, seriously look at the current state of products that are available to heat and cool your house. You can even heat easily with these same kinds of units.
Yeah, that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these mini splits also are heaters. And something that we're looking forward to being able to afford at some point is some of the new cooling technology, because it runs on 110. It doesn't require any special stuff, and it'll heat and cool, which means once it's there, it's there. You don't have to think about, oh, gee, that worked really great during the summer, but now I got to take the air conditioner out and put that away for the winter. And now
So
which is typical.
There's a few other things you can do to survive the Arizona high temperatures, and that is you could go get a small kiddie pool and put cool water. And around here, you're not going to get cold water in the summer, but you put cool water in it and you can splash around in it. You could put up a lawn sprinkler and let the lawn sprinkler go up and do some evaporative cooling and get in the cool water.
Back before water was an issue in California, we used to wash our driveways and stuff. It was partially to get rid of the dust and pollen and stuff like that. But I would wash the driveway and the walkways every afternoon, and it would drop the temperature in the yard 10 degrees, easy.
Yeah.
Easy, because there was so much evaporative cooling. Then water became too much of an issue, and you couldn't do that anymore.
So I hope this helps. I hope you found some of our strategies for dealing with the northern Arizona heat useful. Trust me, we're in for some more warmer weathers everywhere. We already see that happening, and you need to start thinking about
how you're going to deal with it.
Your solutions when that happens to you.
Yeah, we've got friends who always relied on small home air conditioners, and were willing to, quote unquote, suffer during the day because they would be at work most of the time. Well, as they're retiring, okay, now you're home. What are you going to do? Sit in the basement all day?
Yeah, so, well, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications because we have a lot more stuff going on.
Yep.
We'll catch you on the next one, right, Irene?
Yep, definitely. So until next time, bye.
Bye. Hey, keep brainstorming.
We do.